Hello. This is an unaccustomed time for 52 weeks of design, but there you have it. We're going live with Jessie Schuster. And there we go.
Hi,
Hi. Thank you
how
for
are you?
back.
Thank you for having me. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn this down.
I'm a big fan of your work. I think
Oh,
it's
thank you.
fantastic.
Thank
Uh,
you. That's so nice.
yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of yours as well.
Well, let's just keep talking about that.
Great.
I am. I was COVID adjacent this week,
Oh
so I'm
no.
isolating. So I'm
You have
stuck in.
COVID right now, or you were
No,
like
no, no.
exposed?
I was with somebody who did. So, you've got to wait the 5 days and then test. So,
Are we
I'm
still doing that? I feel like
that's so
ev-
funny that you said that because so many people have said that. And I'm like, I still have a mother who's of a certain age. I still
I
have friends
know.
gotten better from diseases, and we got to make sure they're protected.
I know. I know. It's really important. How are you? Do you feel like you're coming down with anything or no?
I feel.
Well, you look
Um,
great, so
likewise. So,
thanks.
talk to me. I love that pattern behind you, by the way, both of them.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Um, the other direction. The
Where?
turn the other way.
The tile? No, somewhere else.
Um,
Sorry.
so tell me, how did you get involved in design? I feel like, are you an artist?
Um, I mean, I like to think of myself as an artist, but no, I'm not great. I mean, I paint and I draw in my own time, but I'm not an artist per se.
I feel like your art, I mean, your design makes me think you're an artist.
Oh, that's
Your
nice.
compositions, how you photograph your work, or the photographs that you ask a photographer to take. Like I can see a real artist's composition.
I mean, when I think about it, when I start a project, I start with going into the space, meeting with the client, sort of understanding the history of the building or the architecture of the home, working with the architect closely, and then I can sort of start to like really scheme it up and see the whole thing in my head, and we
Mm.
just start like building from there. So it is like an art in a sense. You know, it's hard for me to just like choose one thing or just start with hard materials. I sort of have to do the whole thing at once because that's like how it grows. And then we come back and edit.
How,
So
how does that work if it's a whole house?
it's a
Is
lot
it
of
just,
work.
or is it, I mean, what is
It's
that?
mayhem in my office.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we start a new project, I like to start fresh. So we shop like completely new. We bring in all the newest and the best and the greatest. And we just like really, I start to pull together like an image board. Sometimes it's physical and sometimes it's like on Pinterest and then we make it physical. And from those concepts and things, I send everybody out. I go out and we just come back together and start like pulling.
Yeah.
Um,
How,
and right now we are 9.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
how many?
So we're at a
Second.
good size. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good size. Yeah. We have a lot of work going on and we're quite busy, but it's definitely manageable because we split up into different teams. So not everybody's working on the same project. So yeah. Is that
It,
how you do it or
you're on every project, right?
I'm on every project?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you go, so you start with fabrics. That makes me think.
I start with the hard material. So I start with the concepts, then I go to hard materials, but I do the fabrics at the same time because it like starts to tell this whole story.
Mm.
Um, and it may not end up with what we started with, but that's like the starting point. And then I also start to pull furniture too because it's that also like adds to it. Um, and we kind of just go from there and like have it grow out room by room. Um, you know, we off it like the bedrooms definitely come last, so it's like the heart of the house, like the
Right.
entry, the kitchen, the living room, the family room, the
The
dining
main,
room, like yeah, like what story is that going to tell and how are we going to get that across. And what's super fun is that I don't like to do the same thing on any project. I really like to challenge myself, my team, to just like think outside the box and totally start from scratch. It's very rare that you'll see like the same piece of furniture or the same fabric or anything like that in any of the projects. Yet they they all have a likeness, but they're very different. So we've been working on some more traditional projects. We've been working on some really contemporary, modern projects, and sort of like all over the country. So everything that's coming out in the next, couple of years is going to be like super different from each other, and it's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yes, it
Yeah,
is. So
yeah,
I
it's
did
fun to start to see.
let you finish to tell me how did you get into this?
Yeah. So when I was young, I was always sort of exposed to, what it's like to have the privilege of having an interior designer. My grandmother um, was a really big force in my life, and she was not a creative. She was an intellectual, but she loved like the creative processes, and she loved designing homes. And so did my mom. But they had very different like sensibilities. And I just remember as like a young girl just sitting in on meetings with their designers and sort of like watching this all unfold and really being exposed to that and thinking, this is so cool, like having that feel very right. Um, I went to a very like rigid academic school in Boston. I grew up in Boston, called BVNN, and it was an incredible education, but it was not geared towards the arts. Um, if I
Is
remember,
it this high school? What are we talking about?
yeah, I mean, I was there from like kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And in high school, like our art classes were done in trailers. So that's like outside of the school. So that's like really how much they valued or didn't value art. And so that was never sort of like an option for me, really. I didn't like think about that until much later when I got to NYU. And my mom was actually designing a home in Palm Beach with our family's decorator, Tui Pranich. I don't know if you know Tui. Sort of old
So
school
that
back in the day. Yeah.
I somebody on 52 worked for TUI, and and maybe yes. Anyway, yes. I
Yeah, I
do.
love Tui. He's the most fun. And so I was at NYU and I was in school and I was meeting them because my mom would come in to New York like every other week and meet him, and they'd go to the D&D building. This is when like designers really took their clients around. It was more like old school, like shopped it with them. I feel like that it's changed a lot since then. Do you still do that, you think? Do
No,
you still? No.
some homeowners are super sophisticated about the process, and they really like to be involved. So, I mean, they're all involved. I mean, some
Yeah.
like to go to the D&D building, but not a whole lot. But
Yeah.
I respect that some clients like really it speaks to them.
Yeah, it does. And I think, you know, I don't really bring clients to the D&D building or, I sort of spare them that, but that was like an old school way of doing it. And so I used to meet them, and Tui said to me when I was a sophomore in college, why don't you intern for me while you're in school? And he had an office in New York and Miami. So I started interning. And then when I was graduating, we were just about to be installing my parents' home, and I had interned and worked on the project with him like throughout the whole thing, and he wanted to hire me. So he hired me to run his New York office. I ended up like really splitting my time and spending like 3 weeks a month in Miami and like 1 week in New York. And so that really
And that,
lasted for me. Like,
it's,
what?
it's a little dangerous to
Yeah.
it's a very, very lucky thing that your parents, mother's designer felt comfortable hiring you or having you as an intern, because it can be very fraught.
There was a moment when, there were like some moments of question, and it got like a little complicated in certain like
Yeah, yeah.
things,
It's
yeah.
very
So
close.
yeah, but it worked out much better, once we installed our project and then we moved on. And so I really enjoyed my time with him. And then I wanted to be in New York and focus, and I wanted to go back to school. So I applied to Parsons, and like my first class at Parsons, I just had this ridiculous feeling like, oh my God, I love art school. Like, this is so cool. This is what I should have been doing. Like, I should have come here undergrad. It was just like never really an option for me. Um, Opened my eye. Uh-oh. Did you freeze?
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. To like a new way of thinking about design and approaching design. And, I think, you know, understanding like the basics and like how you break down a chair, like what are the little parts of a chair? How do you build a
Don't
chair?
break it down.
Like how do you take this apart and then like create something totally different? That was so challenging and so exciting. And I just knew that this was like for sure for me. And I started doing small projects on the side, like while I was in school. And one of
How,
the,
how old are you at this point?
I was 22.
Oh, wow.
I was
Yeah,
young.
good for you.
I started my company at 25. I was very young, really green.
So
Um,
you, how did you feel comfortable saying, I can make this a business, I can make this a going concern?
I knew that I knew that I was not a business minded person. I was a creative, really. And I just had this like conviction to go out there and just start pounding the pavement with what I knew and, the experience that I've had. And, I wanted to start small. I didn't want to start like on, multi-million dollar projects. I wanted to start small and like test things out. And I ended up working for a girl that I know, or doing her apartment, and her father happened to be business partners with Kelly Wearstler's husband. Um, and her mother loved the project so much and said, "Oh my gosh, I have to show this to Kelly, and da 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 da, and she's gonna love that." And Kelly was like my idol at the time. She was exploding, and was the epitome of cool. And it was just like such a
Still is
trailblazer. So
very,
yeah,
very first.
she still is, by the way. I adore her. And I think she just, is incredible, and is an incredible mentor. But anyway, that's sort of how that started. And then I went out there and I started working for her. And then it just sort of all sort of came together.
So as a self-pronounced creative, how have you
Yeah.
had to change, or what have you had to adopt? This is such a question, but
Yeah.
I answer. Um, how have what have you needed to incorporate to be the business person that you now are? Because I think
Ooh.
a lot of people call themselves, they're creatives, and many of us are, but there are certain things, there's certain things I cannot, I shouldn't be doing at work because I'm no good at them. But
Mm-hmm.
then there are some things, there's some things that you must do, and you must not opt out simply because you think of yourself as creative.
That's
So where,
100% true.
um, and if you're looking at Kelly Wearstler and her business and how it's blown up, like what are you taking from that, and where are you excited? What are the business things that excite you?
So I've had my company for 11 years. And it's, looking back on from where I started, it's been such an amazing like progression, right? Like every year the projects get bigger and the clients get bigger, and it gets more exciting, obviously, because you get bigger budgets and you get to be like, more creative, and really like start to experiment, and get really fun. But I think in the business, seeing that come together, I think understanding, like knowing where to delegate, knowing having the intuition and the instinct to understand that, you know, maybe I'm not like the best with numbers. So I have a CFO. You know, I'm not the best with contracts. I think dealing with your clients one-on-one with a contract is not always like the best solution to something. And you know, so now I have sort of like a buffer, and that's really sort of really changed the game for me, because I'm not necessarily, I mean, I'm involved on the back end of it, working with my CFO to develop the contracts, but I'm not like involved with the client. And
And
that sort of takes a
it has
nice,
to make sense to you, right? I mean, you have to be able to read it and think like, oh, I as a normal person understand what this is saying
oh yeah,
of it. Yeah.
100%. But I think it's the interaction between where that's like sort of where the tension arises between a client and a designer. If you sort of take that out of it, it's just a lot easier, um, in terms of the flow. Like they're not dealing with me with money. We're not really, we talk about it, we know the budget. We produce,
Yeah.
like, you know, we've gotten really smart about how we go about starting a project with a client, right? So like when I send out a proposal, we also send out like an estimated budget for the project, which is a lot of work for us, but it's really pertinent to making sure that the client understands what it takes and how much it will cost to do this project. So we'll take their floor plan, we'll come up with a furniture plan. Obviously, it's an estimate, an estimation, but we'll, you know, put in our numbers for what we know, like every single thing in the room, from, you know, the accessories to the labor to, you know, all of it. So it's super itemized and detailed, and it really shows the client like, okay, this is, you know, this is what it takes. This
Yeah.
is what it costs. Yeah. And things obviously might change, but here and there, you know, because this is an art, not a science. It's really hard to always get it right to the number, as I'm sure you, you know.
I'm
But
impressed
it's,
to add accessories into your
oh
estimates because
yeah,
they're such a moving. I mean, I bang on about accessories all the time,
I know.
but I think their pricing is very hard to to know.
Well, you could put in like an average, right? So like for, you know, the size of the room and what room, a living room, like you could say, all right, oh, it's going to be 20 grand, or it's going to be 50 grand, or whatever it's going to be, because it could be some like sort of piece of art or sculpture, you know, that's included in there too. But like, you know, blankets,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you give an
Pillow,
average.
blanket,
Pillows,
sure,
yeah, yeah,
but but the tabletop stuff, I just find
I
that
know. You
real.
have to hold a number though, because then at the end of the project, if a client's exhausted from that, it's like, you can't come at them and say, all right, I need 100 grand to go accessorize
Yeah,
your house.
boxes and some balls.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we try to, I mean, I've learned, it's a process, right? In every
Sure.
project, you learn something new, and you incorporate that into your next project and your skill set, right? And my grandfather always used to say to me, every knock is a boost. And I cherish that, because I really think that it's what's helped me grow a lot in business, right? It's not getting knocked down by something, but it's like learning from what happened and like getting up and doing it better, and
Yeah,
learning from that.
you have to spin things for yourself so that you don't get discouraged.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
true in any career, right?
Yep, it is. It's true. And it's true across the board. And then also, I think, you know, as I've grown out my team, because I can't do this on my own, and it really does take a village. So it's really about like being smart about who you bring on to work with you, and how you structure your teams and the systems that you have in place. And it's a learning experience. It's a growing experience. And, you know, we're always internally trying to like have meetings and tweak things, and, you know, figure out how
Right.
do we do this and how do we make this better. And it needs to be, you know, everything needs to be the same for every team, and da 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 da. So sorry, we have dogs here, and we just got into a fight. Um, my office is like a kennel. No, go on your bed.
I was talking to a
Huh.
colleague about this yesterday. I was like, oh my God, we should just take over that room and just make it a kennel. Uh,
I'm like,
so,
uh,
are you in the same physical office you were in when COVID began?
yes.
And has anything changed about the orientation of the office since COVID?
We were
Because,
in office all of COVID.
but I mean, there's nothing. Uh, I'm asking because I'm going from a much more um, corporate looking office to an intentionally more residential office looking
Mm.
office because that's how I want to work now.
Yeah,
So
I
I
mean,
have
I can
changed.
show you my office because I'm in it right now. Let me just do like a little. Um, it's a mix. I mean, I think it feels corporate. I don't know if you can see. Kind of like, let me lift everybody up.
Well,
Hi.
the tubes at the top. Sure, on the ceiling.
What happened? You were on the
The
ceiling?
pipes.
Oh,
The pipes seem corporate,
yeah.
but
I mean, yeah, it's industrial feeling, but at the same time, it has like a really nice. It
yeah,
has
it's
a nice sensibility.
fun.
I don't. Yeah, it's fun. It's a great place. But I mean, we did get everybody USM desks that are really quite wide, so people are really separated, which is nice. Um, because before we had smaller desks and people felt like they were on top of each other, and I want everyone to feel comfortable. We did get these like plastic dividers or
Yeah,
dividers between desks, but in the end, nobody wanted to use them just because it's very collaborative and people are always talking over. So, but that's kind of, that's kind of that. I
the
mean,
way, the way it is.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah. So it sounds like you had a very seamless COVID experience.
seamless. Yeah, I mean, actually, two people had COVID last week in my office. So we sort of have instituted if anybody feels sick or, feels something coming on, stay home, work from
Absolutely.
home, don't come in, don't, it's going around again, don't bring it here.
Right.
So,
Or risk-
I mean, we're not quite at the point where everyone's masking up again. That just feels like a lot. We do have like in sort of industrial, what are they? Like air purifiers. Um, so we'll see. It helps.
what are some of the favorite projects that you're working on right now?
Um,
Assuming that it's a variety of different things that are speaking to you.
yeah, so we have some really fun projects going on. The project behind me is this awesome project we're working um, on 67 Vestry Street. It's a building that is being redone and is currently under construction, the whole building. It was originally an artist's loft. So Warhol had a studio there. Chamberlain had a studio there. It was very cool. So it's a sort of small building, I think a lot of full floors. And we're doing like one of the penthouses there. It's going to
What
be,
what direction does it face? Is that a
it's it faces every direction.
right? But it's on
It's
the
facing the river.
okay.
So it's like all along the river. So it's on
Okay.
Vestry and the West Side Highway.
Best Street. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and it's just such an exciting project. Like the client has just given us full reign to really stretch our creativity. And he has been super excited to be a part of the process. And he's very intellectual. So it's great because he really like understands and grasps the concepts and is very excited about it. So we're thrilled about this project. Can't wait to see it start coming together. We're finishing right now a project that I'm working on with my parents, which has been really great. It's
It was
been
great or terrible.
no, it was great. It was great. They were amazing clients, and it was really fun and rewarding to work with them. We built a house, or they built a house on the ocean that we've been working on it for 3 years in Palm Beach on the north end. My mom is really into the north end there. Um, and it's incredible. It's like really starting to come together. We're installing in February, so I cannot wait to shoot that because it's amazing and there's so many fun details and architecturally that we got to include and incorporate into that project. That feels very contemporary. It's sophisticated, but also very beachy at the same time. So it has like a really interesting flow.
What
We're
what
working
does
on
what does your
what is
apartment look like? Yeah.
my apartment. My apartment is um, very me.
Uh-huh.
It's very me. I think my apartment is a real reflection of, I'm very busy, so like I don't have a lot of time to just like spend on designing myself, designing for myself. So it's really a collection of things that I love and like to put together. And it was actually I shot it a couple years ago, and El Decor I think picked it up and ran it.
I probably
Uh,
and not
yeah,
realize.
I'll send it to you. It's really
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I love Italian furniture, and I love like mid-century Italian. So there's a lot of that incorporated into that. A lot of custom pieces. I have a Matteo Bonetti coffee table, like this like blue glass table that's like very postmodern and sort of like different. It feels like
What's
me.
the
It's
what's the color scheme?
what's the what's name?
The color scheme.
Oh, so I moved from the West Village unwillingly. I really didn't want to leave. I know. And I ended up moving into a really great apartment in Soho, but I was nervous to move to Soho because I like nature and I like light. And I feel like Soho is very dark because you have all these cast iron buildings and, the sun doesn't like shine directly into these apartments. I don't see sky, is what I'm saying, right? Where in the
Right.
West Village, I see sky and water and trees. And here, that like was something that I don't like to feel claustrophobic. So I wanted to create something that was a little bit more colorful and vibrant. Um, that would be very calming and serene for me. So I incorporated blue. Blue was the color. So, do you know Adelphi, the wallpapers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did Strawberry Hill. They take all their wallpapers from like um, older, like you know, cool, very important buildings, and they
Okay.
recreate them. So mine's from Strawberry Hill, and it's like blue and red, and I have this fabulous like
I mean, I'm
sculptural.
thinking Strawberry Hill, the house in England.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like the
Yeah.
Gothic.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I did that like wallpaper, but like in blue and red that was taken from there. It's like all on the fireplace, and um, there's a lot of blue and fun like incorporated into it, but neutrals mostly.
I ask because I do think our houses, but it depends on our age. Um, I definitely it is a lab, and it comes
Lab.
out. Like I try crazy things at home, which then will spin out for homeowners.
Totally.
Um, in a more not crazy way.
Yeah,
Uh,
because you're testing things out. It's like doing things that you necessarily wouldn't show a client or that your clients wouldn't necessarily understand, right? Like I get my clients and everyone's different, but I can totally read them and understand what they're going to want. And sometimes they want to go funky and sometimes not. I like to be funky. So for me, it's really fun to like, test out colors and test out textures and things that I wouldn't do for clients. So it's fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how you said you never, well, I'm sure sort of never repeat an upholstery shape or a scheme for a client. But there's some things obviously that must be tried and true that you couldn't keep it from a client simply because like a Jean-Michel Franck armed
Yeah.
sofa.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
you
totally.
know, do, I think there's a fine line that we all walk between wanting to invest, and we must invest each job with the personality of the homeowner, but not wanting to hit the same notes all over again, but not wanting to be different just for the sake of being different. It's a funny thing.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there there are designers that sort of feel very comfortable within like a range and they like this, brand for fabric and they like, you know,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't have my favorite brands, but I sort of like more sort of off the beaten path
Yeah.
um, brands and I try to go to places and things and that not everybody knows about or has exposure to. And
Nobody wants the brand to speak louder than the room of
exactly.
whatever, like whether it's a furniture brand or a fabric company or whatever.
Totally. Right. It just has to blend. But I think, what you're saying is very true. Like, of course, classic pieces that have been used in a project, of course, you can carry that over from time again. But I really try to, not just go in my pocket and like reuse something from the last project. Like, I really try to think of it like in an organic way from like a totally different perspective.
Yeah. Try to
And
retire if they're very loud and noticeable. And if I've used one a lot, then I put it into retirement.
I mean, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. Like, for example, Jacques Caron, just his new book just came out, and it's so beautiful. And in a lot of his projects, like he carried over some of his fabrics and things like on upholstery, and it's so fabulous that like he should do that. So
Fabulous.
then again, but I really try to just start fresh, start from scratch, and just do something new.
Well, which brings me to my question about products. Would you want to
Yeah.
do products? Because the same thing, the same concerns. You want to obviously make things that you would use. I mean, it'd
Yep.
be terrible if you designed things that you wouldn't use. But then
Terrible. Yep.
you don't want to use them all the time so that they
Right.
become synonymous with you.
Right.
So
Um,
what are you in the mood to do? Or what have you done also already?
so like I'd say the majority of our work now on projects, I would say like probably 70% of the things that we put into projects are custom. Um, I actually just sort of started talking to a few different people about maybe coming up with, sorry, will you grab that toy out of his mouth? Uh, Squeaking. Um,
Knife out of the dog's mouth right now.
yeah. Um, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So
So
started
you
to
were
talk
talking
about like maybe
about
developing some sort of like products, whether it's lighting or accessories, which is really exciting and new for me. So I'm just sort of starting to wrap my head around what that's going to look like and how that can translate in sort of like an affordable way, um, and still be like authentically me. It's challenging.
it is
It's hard.
challenging.
Yeah, it's really
It's a
hard.
lot it's a lot easier if you're a classicist, I would tell you, as I'm
Yeah.
sure you um would you ever have a story?
You know, so my best friend and I, we share an office actually. He's also a very talented interior designer, Patrick McGrath. And we talked about it for a long time. Like maybe should we just open a store? Should we, you know, what should we do? Because we were like trying to
Yeah.
figure out something to do also along with what we do. Um, and ultimately we decided against it. I think that, brick and mortar is tough, especially in New York.
Right.
Rents are
Right.
crazy,
Yeah. What
and
click and mortar?
what?
Uh, what about click and mortar as
Click
I've
and
heard?
mortar, I'm actually also in the process right now of developing something that's a whole other world that is like that I don't know a lot about. And so I've been sort of exposed to that through a few people that are trying to help me come up with something that will be click and mortar, which I think
Fancy.
is amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great. It's just time consuming to get it like set up, but it's definitely worth it. And I think that it's a great business model. It's easy for
Bite your tongue. Bite your tongue,
not
Jessie.
easy. I don't think it's easy. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's easy for the client to, interact and sort of understand, if you're not hiring me as a designer,
Right.
like
You just get a piece of it.
exactly. And it's really easy. You can just say, okay, well, I love that light that you used, but here's like three other examples of this that are like less expensive. And how is that attainable for you? Boom, just click on it on my website and you can buy it. It's great.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm working on that too.
Yeah, no, so I mean, So I don't believe you totally that you're a creative and don't like, uh, I mean, it sounds like you're having fun flirting with other business ideas.
Yeah, I mean, just I've been wanting to sort of do that for a while, but I've been sort of like in the weeds because we're just, we're still growing and it's just we have so much work going on. So it's really
Yeah,
hard to like
your job is your day job, and your day job is what you enjoy.
exactly. So like pivoting from that is really difficult, but it's necessary. I think you sort of get to a certain point in your career and you're like, okay, I want other, you know, ways of income. And I want to, explore other things as well. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I loved your Kibbs Bay show house in
Thank
Florida.
you.
It
Yeah,
looked like a cubist painting. I loved the way it looked.
thanks.
I'm a big believer in show houses, obviously from the philanthropic standpoint, first and
Totally.
foremost, but also I think it is a great way for us to, for decorators to, designers to put it out there and to play.
Yeah. Mine was playful. Like a lot of designers do something really tasteful and beautiful, but at that time in my life, I think this was like maybe, I don't know, was it 4 years ago? I was really feeling like I want this to be like the inner workings of my brain. These are the things that I never get to do for anybody else. And I just want to have fun with it and see where it takes me. People really either responded to it or it just like went right over their head. Like it was a lot in a very small space.
I,
So,
I do think that is, the older I get and the more I think about it, the better I think that is. I think if it's noisy, it does a great thing for the show house because people come in and to what you just said, they respond or they don't, but
right,
they want to come and decide their opinion. So it
right.
can be a great force for ticket sales for the charity.
Totally. Like
Right.
I think if I were to do another Kibbs Bay, which I'm sort of coming up on that time, um, an investment because it's quite an investment. But I think that if I were to do it again, I would probably do something that was more appealing um, to the majority of the people coming versus me making like a statement. Here I am. This is really bold, and I'm inspired by Man Ray and Salvador Dali, and I'm like want to create this very sexy, weird little room for everybody to experience. Um, it was like, and I loved it.
It did not look like a cubist painting. It looked like a Leger. It
Yeah,
looked like a
yeah,
Leger come to life.
yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
uh, so, in the spirit of you're wanting to do something different, yeah, you would have to say something else.
I think so. I
Um,
think, a lot of designers use the show house to really sell themselves and to sell, their products and it's so smart and great.
you're not
You know,
for kids. We're not all like it's not. You're not supposed to use a lot of your stuff. It's
right.
supposed to be legit instead of like an
Yeah.
advertisement.
Well, there were some designers that used a lot of their own stuff, but it was, you know,
Right.
it worked
Integrate
for them.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a selling tool. And by the way, it really worked. People really respond to that, They like to see and touch and feel like they're meeting the designer and the product and all of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, probably at this point, I would do something that was more obtainable to most people. Like, I love that you loved it. And I think that a lot of people had that same response and thought it was super cool. But a lot of the people that came through the show house were like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, great programming. I mean, you're not going to get. I always think like we're planting seeds. So maybe people said, oh, whatever, but people are tearing out that picture or they're remembering it and they're filing it away. And you
Right.
don't need 5 million clients. You need whatever number you do need.
That's
Um,
right.
it's not quantity. Do you do commercial
Totally.
too? I feel like
We do. which is so interesting because most small firms are focused either on one thing or the other. And actually, most hospitality commercial workers, like bigger firms, I sort of was thrown into more commercial work very early on. So when I was working with Kelly, my dad was designing, he's in healthcare and in real estate, and he was designing, rolling out like high end independent living and assisted living facilities, like where he had nursing homes.
Yeah.
And he had hired this like design team out of Texas who specialized in this, and he just wasn't liking what they were providing, and he kept saying to me, come to a meeting, I need you to be involved, I need you to get. I'm like, I can't, I'm in LA, I'm working. But I ended up moving back to New York, and I got involved, and what ended up happening is I ended up taking over the whole project because it needed help. And yeah,
Am I going
and
to these places? Where are they located? Are they in Florida?
I hope not. They're in Massachusetts, all over in New York, like upstate.
I mean, I
Um,
love to know that there was a place out there when the time comes that looks amazing.
I know it's really actually amazing. Like I didn't have experience in doing this per se, and it was a real learning curve because designing for the elderly is not sexy, but there's a lot that you have to know and learn to be able to do it properly. Like seat heights have to be higher, seats have to be
Right. Not super.
firm.
Right. Right.
Exactly. You have to be able to get up. Like we used Krypton, and the
Yeah.
advancements in all these fabrics were so amazing. We were able to find Krypton and things that looked incredible. We also have ALZ facilities for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. That's a whole other thing because um, people with Alzheimer's, they only see primary colors.
No.
Um, yes.
Really?
Yeah. And so
And
for wayfinding,
is it disturbing for them to experience a lot of color?
it can be disorienting for them to see shiny objects or things with a lot of pattern on them. Oftentimes they'll get like really focused on it, or they'll pick at it, and it makes them a little nuts. One thing that we really wanted to do differently than I think other buildings in the past had done, we wanted to, you have to lock in Alzheimer patients because they tend to wander, and you can't let them out of the building. So we created all these like indoor amazing like routes and paths and gardens inside for them, and the buildings ended up winning a bunch of design awards, and
It's amazing.
yeah, so
Have
I
you,
kind of got thrown in that way.
could you put that on your Instagram
um
images? I mean, do you have images?
yeah,
I
I
just
do.
That's so amazing and laudable and a great real way. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a great thing for designers to do because, people people need that.
people do need it. I felt like early on in my career, this is not what I want to be like putting out as my, foray into the design world. But now, it's something that I am really proud of. And my dad actually just come to me recently wanting to do a couple more projects. So we're sort of looking at that. But, hospitality is hard. It's a totally different beast. It is really exciting in so many ways and really challenging. And, you know, it's complicated. It changes. I've worked on projects in Las Vegas, Miami. We just finished two sister hotels in South Beach, the Esme and Casa Matanza, it's called, on Washington and Espanola Way.
I love that
Uh,
you think geography and anywhere.
um, uh, that was super exciting. We worked on that for about 4 years. So to see that really come together and all through COVID, and it was really intense.
I bet.
All through, um, COVID was like, are we opening? The developers are losing like millions of dollars a week that we're not open. And it just,
Will people go to
it was,
hotels?
Right. And that was also like in the middle of designing, it was like we had to sort of shift gears and think about like how do we, come up with new ways to make, people, travelers feel safe, feel comfortable, what are we incorporating like, um, blue lights or, hygienic ways of like thinking about certain things like, elevator buttons, they make elevator buttons that like self clean and,
Mhm.
it was really challenging and cool. But that was like, it ended up opening last year during our Basel. And initially we were designing this. It was, I think it's a 4-star hotel, but the price point was low. It was like $300. The demographic was supposed to be like $300 a night. Um, and I didn't think that like anybody, you know, my contemporaries would be staying there. But because they jacked up the prices so much in Miami during our apostle because of all of the,
Right.
yeah, it was like crazy. Everyone ended up staying there. And it became this like really big deal. People love it. So, I mean, it's been really fun for me. I think I'm my own harshest critic, So when I'm like done with a job, I'm like, okay, I've worked on it for 4 years. I'm so sick of seeing it. Da 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 da. It's really hard for me to say, oh yeah, it's great. But I'm learning that too. So yeah,
Well,
that was
yeah,
really
but
exciting.
in this case, you didn't have to say it because other people were saying it.
Yes,
Um,
and Miami, the city of Miami actually awarded us for most innovative design for hotel, and they also awarded us for historic preservation, which they've never awarded a designer like in the same
that,
category. So it was great. Yeah, that felt good, and we'll take it. But um, currently, we're working on a restaurant project in LA called Salty Girl, which I'm supposed to be installing in a couple weeks. So I'll
what
be out in
is
LA.
good? What is good about designing a restaurant? What's fun about designing a restaurant? I mean, the unfun is
Don't ask me right now. No, I'm just
all right.
kidding.
I'll ask you.
No, I'm kidding. It is fun to design restaurants. Again, it's like the way you come at designing a commercial space is very different than the way you would approach designing a residential space. And you're really telling a story. You're working with, a company, developers, business owners who are who have this brand, and you're trying to make this thing come to life and really stand out in its own way.
Right.
Um, while also, maintaining some of yourself in there and inserting that. But it's really like a story. And it's fun. I mean, working in LA, in West Hollywood in particular, like I heard that it was super challenging, but it ended up taking us like 8 months to get permits. Really challenging, and it really pushed us back. Um, and also, I'm sure it's challenging to just work across the country. It's just not easy, It's when you're installing and you're on site and the contractor's sending you terrible pictures of plaster going up on the walls, and you're like, oh my God, what color is that? That's not what
I'm
I specified.
happen.
Huh?
I'm sure that never happened. I'm sure it
Yeah,
was delightful. But yeah, I mean, there are actually some, I think, some benefits to being away because you cannot be there every day wringing your hands.
right.
There
You're
can
not
be,
micromanaging.
yeah. But I love that you're doing all of these different projects. I mean, definitely the healthcare thing blows my mind. It's so cool.
Thank
It
you.
really is amazing.
Thank
But
you.
even at like a lower price point hotel, um, I hate I love beautiful hotels, but I hate having to spend too much money on. I mean, we all would like to have it all, right? I mean,
I
there's
know.
to be had at every price point, and you're
But
making the point. You're doing it for real.
yeah, I mean, you get a lot of design for that price point, and it was my first hotel, so I really went all out, and it feels super luxe, and it really tells the story of the brand and the brand's history. This was originally like an artist enclave. It was a Mediterranean revival building, and it's a historical building. Miami's mostly Art Deco, so that was really cool and sort of set itself apart. Al Capone used to take his mistresses to the sister hotel,
Yeah.
Casa Matanza. So we came up with a whole other story and design for that. It's sort of like the seedier,
Yeah.
sister. And that
The
was really fun too.
sister. Esme,
Yeah.
Esme's loose sister.
Esme's slutty sister over there. No. But it was fun. I mean, it was great. It was such a great learning experience. And I, would love to do another hotel.
Yeah.
I would build out my team specifically for that.
You
I
would, but when
think
you finished?
what?
If you build out your team for that, what do you do when that is finished?
You get another hotel
Right.
project.
Yeah.
you
Um,
know,
I think there should be a super designer hotel where we all get like a floor and we each do different rooms differently.
that's so
And
cool.
wouldn't
I
it
love that.
be amazing? And
They're
get
doing this in LA, by the way, in Santa
with
Monica. There's
with
a
like
develop.
partners.
It's like a super high-end hotel. Um, it's going up like on the ocean. I was approached to maybe collaborate on it, but they didn't end
I'm
up going with me. But
horribly offended that I have not been spoken to.
I know I was horribly offended that they didn't hire me, but it's a super cool concept, and I think they have different designers doing like different areas
Yeah.
in the common spaces, and then like there's residences, so they have like different
We
designers splitting that.
we should all of us hook up with a Vegas developer to do that because then you really could have completely different experiences.
Vegas
Um,
is really complicated. I just
I
did a
bet.
project there, and if you're not licensed in Vegas, it's like a nightmare. Apparently, my head is on some hate board somewhere. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they don't take kindly to out of state designers coming in and doing projects in Vegas, apparently. So Vegas is complicated, but let's pick any other city.
Don't you think it's fascinating when people you might meet casually and you tell them what you do for a living and they know nothing of any of the things that you have told me in this
Mm-hmm.
past hour? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like your face is on some hate thing or that you're helping design beauty for Alzheimer's patients or like it's such a it's a
It's
complex
diverse.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's very impressive. Very
Thank
impressive.
you. Thank you. That
So
really
what
means a lot coming from you.
I know, and somebody's saying too many likes. I know. I sound like a valley girl. It's terrible.
What? Somebody said what? Too many
Too many
likes for me?
likes.
What does
It's
that mean?
the word like. I
Oh,
use it. I have horrible verbal tics. I'm good in writing, but not in speaking. So my question for you is, what is the next couple of years like for you? Oh, there's that word again.
the next couple of years. Um, well, I'd like to sort of continue pushing forward.
Mhm.
Just getting, bigger projects. I'd like to sort of maybe start taking on fewer but bigger projects.
Right.
Um, I think that's the goal
I
while
think
also
having choice is what you're saying.
I mean, I do have a choice. I'm pretty picky now about the clients that we take on just because I know how to read people, and we're entering into a long-term relationship. We're going to be in this together for the next like
You're dating.
2 to 3 years. We're dating. So, it's important like that you have a good rapport with your clients and that you trust each other and you're transparent and that your clients are not going to disappear and they're going to pay you on time and all those fun things. But I'd like my project to be even bigger and just keep growing. Um,
Answer to Persian Emu, yes, she does see product in her future.
yeah,
She is thinking about it right now.
yeah, I'm in talks to sort of start developing that side, and I would love to get that going in the next. I mean, one of the companies I was talking to was talking about it launching in like 2024. So it's what
What about a book?
I would love to do a book. I feel like I need to photograph like the next 4 projects.
Okay.
But yeah, I would totally be open to it. And also developing this whole website situation. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great thing. So, and taking a little time to work on my personal life. I'd love to um, have some time to think about starting a family of my own, and you know, it's hard.
So those
Multitasking.
little things, just a
Yeah.
couple
Just all of this, So we'll
oh,
see.
little something.
Let's talk in 4 years and see where
All
how
right.
I've done.
Let's talk in four projects being photographed because I have a great book agent
Okay, amazing.
I would love to share with you. And
Thank you.
if you have any of those healthcare photos and Esme, I probably saw it on your website, but put
I'll
those,
send it to you. Yeah.
no, put them up on your Instagram for us all to see.
I know. Instagram, I like it's such a I was,
Have somebody,
I go through phases where I'm like into it, and then I had someone helping me, and then it was just like more work.
that's,
And
you don't have to just
no, I have to get back on it.
love, I would love to
I'm
see it.
bad about posting my own work, but I will. I will do it for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
This was
Well,
amazing. You're so lovely.
so
Thank you
much.
for having me.
And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Me too. I hope we can meet in person.
Yes, we need to be maybe not in Vegas, maybe Reno
Okay. Reno's fine.
at the hotel.
Love
Okay.
it.
Bye.
Okay, have a great one. Hope you're healthy. Okay. Bye.